John Court. We will then go to our featured speaker, which is our Clark County Clerk's Department, to give us a quick update on Klineline Park. Beyond that, we do have to do, maybe we'll go ahead and do the elections at the beginning here, just to get those out of the way. So as a neighborhood association, the county sponsors us. I've been doing this in this role for about 12 years now. It's a completely voluntary role. We don't carry a treasury. We're very informal, but merely helps keep us on track. And so one of the things that we are required to do is hold a meeting at least once a year and hold an election once a year. Our elections tend to be whoever's volunteered to just help on the board. So if you have a chance to take a look at this ballot that I put in front of you, and I don't know how we can show this on Zoom. I guess I could just read it off, basically. So right now we have the existing board members that have agreed to stay on. Myself as president, Linda Elms, who is here but had to run to the airport, as vice president, and she's doing our email list. Betty Hennessy, who normally is here but doesn't look like she's with us tonight, is kind of our secretary. And then we have some open board members. So Cliff Richard has been on our board for a long time. Jan Panera is the one who goes to Arizona, so she's not here at the moment. And then Brad Isler also told me he had a previous commitment tonight, so wasn't able to make it. So I'd just like to open the floor for nominations. Would anyone like to self-nominate or nominate someone else to be an officer? It's a very voluntary position. Currently, we're just meeting once, perhaps twice a year. We get together as a board about twice a year. We have planned some formal events in the past, such as a picnic. We've done a neighborhood garage sale. We've done the green bag food pickups. I've done make a difference day cleanups in the neighborhood. But it's really a matter of how much or how little people want to be involved. So just out of curiosity, anybody interested in joining the board or being a part of our board group? That's a new person.
It's Linda. So
oh, great. No nominations from the floor then? Okay. So basically we're just gonna kind of do, oh, hello there. This is Betty Hennessy. So hi, Betty. She's one of the people listed here as our secretary. And I'm gonna hand out a couple more of these because we didn't quite get everyone in that. Everybody except for Betty. Oh, okay. You got the last two. Yeah. All right. There you go. Just so you know your program. Anyone else need one? Okay, so again, just opening for nominations. If anyone else is interested in joining the board, if not, can we just get a simple A if we agree with the board, and A if anyone disagrees. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The board members stand. Yay.
I have to run the election.
Check the box. Betty, you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself. Everyone else, we've gone around the tables. Do you want to say just a few quick words?
Oh, I'm Betty Hennessy. I've lived in our neighborhood since association here. Okay.
Thank you so much. Great. All right. Well, without further ado, I think I will go ahead and turn it over to Sheriff John Court so he can give us a quick update on Clark County Sheriff's Department.
All right. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. I'm going to use my phone. Where should I stand, or do they want to see me?
Why don't you go ahead and stand
I want-
over here and then I'll
my
move the
backside.
camera.
Right
Whoops.
here?
Yeah, and that way I can move the camera so that people online can see you.
All right. All right. I'm going to use my phone for some notes. Good evening, everyone. If we haven't met, I'm John Court, Clark County Sheriff. I heard there's some people that haven't lived here very long. I'm going to give, as best I can, a 2-minute snapshot of the Clark County Sheriff's Office, who we are, what we do. 2 minutes, going to go real quick, and where we patrol, what our functions are. So basically, there's a great map in here. And if you look at it, if you can turn around, you see that map. Everything in white is unincorporated Clark County. Now, I'm the sheriff of the entire county. Means I could trump the chief of police of Vancouver if I want. But everything in the white is what basically for patrol services and the law enforcement service is what the sheriff's office handles. The green is the city of Vancouver. You'll see, I think, Ridgefield on the on the left, and then Battleground, Camas, Washougal. So all that white area, the population of that average is about let's just say 250,000, all living in the white area. And then the green area is 250,000 roughly. So 500,000, maybe it's about 525. So we're the same population as City of Vancouver and all the other cities. This is important to know here. So same population we're covering. Look at the area that we're covering, and then we'll talk about our staffing. So that's anyways. It's the first established law enforcement agency in Washington State, 1849. We just had our 175th anniversary. We had an event downtown. It was great to see some of the history, some of the cases that come through here. Some unfortunate cases that come through. So what we do, when you see a police officer or a sheriff, usually you see them in uniform. You may run into a detective or something, but you see a big white Tahoe that says sheriff on it. So those are our patrol units. We have our sheriff's office has 157 sworn officers, ones that carry a badge. That includes me. So I'm part of the 157. The chiefs and our commanders, Sergeant Greg Agar is in the back there. We have 22 sergeants, and then the rest are deputies. So out of 157, roughly 60 are assigned, 61 are assigned to patrol, uniform patrol. So Hazel, you see all the areas that we cover. We have 3 shifts. So that's their main function, is handle 911 calls. They take reports, they arrest people, bad guys, they're looking for speeding, all that is patrol. So 61. So you take the others, and then we have a bunch of other units. I'm going to go through them quick, but we have a major crimes unit, because if a patrol unit goes to somewhere, it's a homicide. They're not trained. They don't have the time. They are band-aids. They're going to the next call that they can lock down a scene. They can grab witnesses and kind of preserve evidence. But then we call our detectives out, right? Who have the time. You've seen the shows. Is it NCI? Is that one of them? It's not like NCI, whatever it is. We don't solve things in an hour, and we don't just get fingerprints that quick. But we have great detectives who do a lot of work, and we have a lot of resources. So they'll come out. We have a couple other special detective units, like if patrol goes through a robbery and armed robbery here, and we get the suspect and they arrest him. We still need follow-up on that, and maybe not the major crimes unit do it, but we have an in-between immediate, what do I want to say, kind of it's called a tactical detective unit. So they have unmarked cars, they have lights in their cars and stuff like that. They'll wear patrol vests, but they'll kind of follow up on those kind of crimes, burglaries and stuff that patrol can't follow up on. So then we have a traffic unit. Mostly they're doing traffic fatalities, DUI accidents, or they're tied up with that quite a bit. There's 3 in the unit right now. Correct me if I get these numbers wrong. 3 in the unit right now, and they also go out and work high speeding areas when they can. So we have our undercover unit, or a special investigations unit. We have a marine unit, but it's not fully staffed. Usually we have 2 full-time people in there. We have a lot of marine calls on the Columbia River, because we're the only one on this side that has a marine unit. Merwin, Yale, and we'll go up to Swift. We'll go on the Lewis for certain rescues, and we go out quite a bit. We're back in the schools, and at Prairie High School, school resource officer. We have a sex offender unit for detectives. You guys did know, both states and Washington's people that are convicted of sex crime, sex offender, they have to register, and they have certain criteria they have to meet depending on what type of level of crime they had. We have to constantly monitor that, where they're living. They have to check in. Some that are really, really bad have to check in every month. They have to come down and physically check in, and if they don't, warrant can be issued for their arrest, or if they give wrong information. So that unit with courthouse, we have our civil unit that does all the civil papers and extraditions and warrants. So we have then we have our K9 units. We have our UAS, which is known as drones. Let's just call them drones. We have a lot of people that we use the drones quite a bit on patrol. I would say a couple times a week, maybe more, a couple times a night. So maybe I'm out of touch, right? I think it's one of the best things. Besides, I'm not wearing my body-worn camera. It's in the car, but body-worn cameras and our drones have been phenomenal for law enforcement. So because you put up a drone, you can watch a whole area, and now you can describe it. You can see where the bad guy goes, or no, they're in the house still, and or in the woods, especially in the wooded areas and unincorporated. The further out you go, we don't want to go run into the woods with a guy with a gun, right? Why not put up the drone, and we have the not FLIR. Is that right? The infrared, you can pick up heat sources, so that works great. So that's a brief overview of what we do. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all the time. And we have, I ran for sheriff. I told my wife because of the men and women we have in the sheriff's office. I think they're great people. And we have great people. We've been hiring great people, but that's been an issue. Our staffing has been so low, and I don't think we've actually been allotted a new position outside of a public safety tax to cover certain things. When I no longer run the jail, if you guys didn't know that, the jail is ran by the county and the sheriff's office is ran by itself. 5 other counties in Washington run it that way. So that's one thing that happened a couple years ago. Anyway, so that's our functions. We are looking for staffing. We've been asking for staffing for the last 20 years, and every year we go behind. We get further and further behind. We'll get there. I'm confident. We're working on it right now. Staff costs money, and money doesn't grow on trees. We all know that. So how do we get that? Where do we put our resources? If the community says, we're dying for more police or whatever the services are, and the county council or our government says, okay, it's going to cost X, Y, and Z. How do we want to pay for it? That's kind of how this all works. So you try to find a balance, right? We can't just, people want to get taxed to death, and they understand that, but they also want certain services that stay up to a standard. Comparatively speaking, I'll tell you right now, City of Vancouver's officer per 1,000 residents is 1.2 officers. So every 1,000 residents, there's a 1.2 officer. I think Ridgefield's probably at about 1. All of them are above 1. Battleground may be at 1.4. And counties will be a little bit lower just because of the tax structure, but we're at 0.64 right now. Huge of. Now, in Washington, the average for a county is about 0.80 deputies per population. Population is one way to look at it. I just want to let you know that call volume is a way to look at that as well. In Washington, a few years ago, some of the law changes really restrict or really force us, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Officer safety and the amount of resources we have to use on a call, especially on a mental health call, are triple what we used to. Maybe for the good too, but the resources, but we haven't tripled our staff. We've actually gone backwards. So the laws require us to take certain measures when dealing with certain people, and we use a lot of less lethal. If you guys seen the rubber bullets, we use tasers, pepper ball guns. Those are phenomenal tools out there, so we don't have to shoot people sometimes. And sometimes we do have to use firearms, and it's unfortunate, but that is part of our job. Body worn cameras, we got about a year and a half ago. They're phenomenal. You got to take off. We got a call. Thank you. Stop by.
Can we recognize them first?
Yeah, hang on. I think you're gonna get recognized.
Part of my job, I like to make sure that we recognize these guys. And I got a news release today on my email that there was an award ceremony last night.
It
And
was last Thursday.
or last Thursday,
Yes.
the Sergeant Agar did receive a life-saving medal. If I'm
Sure. Right. Yep. I can have you give a speech.
Thank you for
He's gonna walk out, which is fine, but I can tell you, this guy, he's gotten several. And he does his work quietly. He goes out there and he works every night. He's also headed up some of our new programs for stopping cars when they run from us, ways that we can go grab them without pursuing them and getting crashes at 100 miles an hour. So he walks quietly but carries a big stick. How's that? All right, thanks, Greg. So that's where we're running into our staffing is, and we're getting to a point where mandatory overtime, if we work 4 days in a row and you only have, and you're mandatory, you come back in for 2 days, you have 6 days in a row, you're working and then you get 2 days off for your family. We can't keep going that way. So all those other units, I wanted you to hear about all the other units we have, and they're so important, but we've had to take from those and put back into patrol because 911 calls is the bread and butter of your safety. Call in the middle of the night, someone's breaking in, that's the number one call we have to go to, right? That's the most emergency call. But from there, we catch somebody, now we need to follow up them. So, but those units now are taking those resources. So it's a balancing game. So I just kind of want to explain to you, well, why don't you just put more patrol people out there? I can do that, but then I lose the function of these other things. And the children's Justice Center, the sex crime that our detectives investigate, specialty unit. I couldn't be one of those detectives. I know some of the stories and some of the things that you hear. It's just incredible. Thank God we have people like that can do that. So all these units are so valuable, but they're getting stretched. So we're working on it. I'm hopeful that we'll get through that. It didn't happen in a year. It's been happening over 20, 25 years of the staffing issue. So that's what we're working on, and we'll get fixed in a year. But we have to do something. We have to get on the right path. So I fight every single day for that because I ran for the people and for public safety because I love serving this community. So that's kind of the we're in 2 minutes. I love being out in the community. I love hearing from people. So I will take your questions now. If you have any concerns, if I don't write them down, Mary Lee's very good about coordinating with me or letting somebody know, hey, this is an area that's still a problem. We worked on with the parks on a center issue, and we come together and do the best we can because not everything can be solved by police, law enforcement. We try the best we can, but we try to use all our government resources. Go ahead.
What are the numbers that you'd like to reach for the number of people?
That's a good question. So we sat down and said, what do we actually need today? This is last July. 40 was the number to adequately, and we couldn't hire 40 in a year. That would take 3 or 4 years. That's how long it takes in the hiring process. But 40 was the number, and that's what I formally requested last year. I'll request that again this year. But every year you can watch the population grow and the calls we're going behind. So it's almost about 2.5 bodies a year is what you lose then. So 40 was the number that got us to just the average. I would love 120. I mean, but I have to be realistic, right? I mean, I have to be pragmatic, but we can't keep going this. And one thing the deputies have told me, and I go out, I was just at a ship briefing night, they go, we love working here, we love the people, but we don't feel like we're supported by we just want to hear that, yeah, we know staffing is an issue from the county government. Yes, we're going to help you. We're going to get on pathway. Even if they gave us a certain amount, you didn't give us 40, you gave us a certain amount, there would be hope there. But there's people that have left last year because they didn't feel like that they felt supported and the amount of their working. I can't just keep working people to death. It's not good for them. And you want somebody who's functioning, right? I'm a little tired tonight. I say good morning to some people when I walk up here. And, I need to go home and get some rest tonight, but we can't do that to people that are in that car driving fast, using the radio on the computer in the car, and then having to make these split-second decisions. You want someone who's physically and mentally there all the time. So it's this wellness that we're really working on. Go ahead.
Do the patrol people still dread the family beef call more than any other?
I will say the domestic violence call is probably the hardest calls we go to. It's a lot of dynamics, a lot of emotion, right? I mean, and some of them are horrific. That's where we usually have our most physical altercations with people or fatal altercations. And there's also a lot of domestic violence that's happened in this county that have resulted in homicide. I mean, last year, 4 people, 1 incident in the city, and so we battle that all the time. They're very unpredictable. I'll go and if we're talking to a victim, and a true victim, and we turn or we're doing something else, but she doesn't like that, we're going to put handcuffs on, and it turns on us. You think, wait, we're trying to, so that's just one thing that we deal with. Or, you're really trying to help somebody get them safe. You do all these things, and then 2 days later, people have to watch out for themselves, or they'll call and say, hey, come back home, and they end up dead. So those are heartbreaking for you. You want to help somebody, you see they're really struggling. And I get some of the reasons why that happens, that circle of lines that happens. So I'm not blaming anybody, it's just heartbreaking to see. So it wears on. And then we go home, the deputy goes home, or they go to the child death, or you go to these horrific calls, these car wrecks where people are they're mangled, they're all over the road, some of them. And they go home and they have their kids, and we tell them, hey, now you have your family time, but they're still trying to process everything because they have to compartmentalize when they're out there working, right? You can't get too emotional because you wouldn't be able to do your job. But where does that go? Where does those emotions go? So we have programs, we have a good peer support group that helps out. So any other questions? Go ahead.
So what can we as individuals do to help increase the staffing?
Okay, great question. So I did bring in the handouts tonight. What is it, January, end of January? I'm working on a couple things. I will let everybody know exactly specifically, because that's a great ask. What can you do? One is to show your support to the county council and say, hey, we support our sheriff's office. It's not to blame anybody for how we got here, because that never gets anybody. If you say you're not doing your job or something like that, people get defensive. Showing your support. And I'll tell you specifically some of the ways you can do that. So give me about 30 days to kind of compile the numbers, because I want it to be people to understand the whole issue. And it's not just when you add police officers, you have to add prosecutors, you have to add support staff. Yeah, it affects everybody. There's kind of a matrix. So that's just the reality of it. So you have to take all that into consideration. So that money has to it has to be thoughtful how it's done. So thank you. I do need a community support. There's no doubt about it. So go ahead, sir.
What age group are street your people, the sheriff, deputy? What age group are 23 to 50, or I mean, can they be any age group, or what do you?
We are hiring. We hire anybody, and can be any age. We hired people 60, 65, 21 years old. 21 is the.
You're not hiring 65-year-old people.
Yeah, we would.
Patrol.
Yeah. I have one, Ed Kingray. You remember him? I think he was 60 when he got hired. He worked till 72. It's not a little unusual. George Barker, comedian, was 77 and 78, I think, when they retired.
We had a quick Zoom request if we could repeat the question for the people on Zoom.
So last one,
I don't see it.
21 is the minimum age.
Oh, can you
To be a
please
police
repeat the
officer.
questions from the floor? They're hard to hear. Okay.
The question was, how old do you have to be? And now I'll say this, if you have somebody that, or somebody here wants to apply, 21 is the minimum age, but that's pretty young, the life experience. It's, we have some good 21-year-old people that come out, but we try to, you see it better at 25, 26, 27. I'll tell you, in my opinion, some of the best deputies we have are the female deputies who have raised teenagers. They put up with some stuff and then they know how to handle it. That's some of our best 35, 40-year-old gals that come on who have had a family, some of our best. But it's that life experience we're looking for. Can they relate to people? Can they talk? And are they good thinkers? Are they and character, right? I can teach you how to shoot. I can teach you how to drive fast. I can teach you how to use the radio. Are you a good person to your core? And those attributes are really what we want. You treat people with respect and all that. So
one more question. I'm sorry. If I understand you correctly, the biggest problem is money to hire officers. There's availability, but not enough money.
through the years, there have been several issues. That is probably the biggest. A few years ago, when the laws changed in Washington that really restricted what we did, we had a mass exodus of people, and then we couldn't get anybody hired. Nobody applied for months. Nobody. So laws can affect it, or the feeling of there was a kind of an anti law enforcement feeling across the country. I'm not saying it was here; it was pocketed areas, but the deputies felt that the people don't want us out here. So people that had 3 or 4 years to go until they retired, they all left, or they left for Texas or Tennessee. They all went, and every week we were losing another person, and I was getting really worried. That stopped. Some of those laws got changed, so that can affect it. Competition. City of Vancouver used to pay a lot more than us, a lot more. They caught that up in the last contract, and it helped to secure people. They go, and they're not in it for the money, but you also have to compensate, right? But if someone else is paying $50,000 more a year, and they're hiring people and they feel they're wanted there, they're going to go there. And the other one is, it is a true fact. I think I don't know who the youngest person in here is, but the generation is a little different. They'll do an interview and they'll ask us questions like, do I have to work graveyard? Do I have to do this? Do I have to work holidays? I never would have asked that during an interview. I don't know what would have happened, but this generation just is a little more, maybe it's good. Maybe they're looking after themselves a little bit better, but they'll ask questions back in the interview and they're interviewing us. I had never seen that before. It started about 5, 6 years ago. But it's happening everywhere. It's kind of like they can be more selective. And so something we're dealing with. So it's just a reality. I mean, it's here. So
Those same people that are asking those questions, hard to get them to get back to the job 5 days a week.
some of them, but we do have a lot of great people here that they want to work under the radar, and do it. And if one more thing before I forget, the Citizens Academy is one of the best things. Has anybody been to Citizens Academy here? If you go, you have your phone or you want to write it down, if you go to our website, everyone should subscribe. We've got great stuff on there. Or Marilee, can you put it out? I think it's well, you go to the Clark County Sheriff's Office, Washington State, because there's other Clark County Sheriff's Office. And then about 3 or 4 posts down, there's on the Facebook, there's a Citizens Academy. And what it is, we're taking applications. It's 7 weeks. You go to our West Precinct and you learn about the criminal justice system. We host it. You'll hear about those units. They'll come in. Guest speakers will come in. It's great, isn't it? K9. You'll go down to the jail. You get to go to the range and shoot all the guns. You get to get tased. I'm kidding. But you get to learn from 911 dispatch, all the different things that happen, and how we do our job. And I've had people. My dad went to it about 15 years ago, which is a mistake. Because now when he sees me, every time we talk, he wants to talk about police work all the time. And I'm like, Dad, you went one time, but it was good. My mom was happy that he was gone for 7 weeks. But it's great because I've had people come in there and be honest, go, hey, I don't like cops. I want to, I don't like law enforcement. I think I don't like the system, but I'm here to kind of learn. Now, I'm not trying to convert anybody. We're just there to show them what we do. Almost every person I felt that way goes, wow, I had no idea. I support you guys not. I was, my perception was wrong. It doesn't mean we don't make mistakes in law enforcement. It doesn't mean we haven't had law enforcement officers make horrendous mistakes around the country. I've seen some, right? We try to get rid of bad apples immediately because trust is our number one thing with the community. If you don't trust us with a badge and a gun and the power we have for arrest, that's pretty bad. So, yeah. Anything else? Or anybody online? Okay, go ahead.
Can you give me a one sentence review of 2 different businesses that I drive by often? They're both hotels on Highway 99. One is right behind Chuck's called Salmon Creek or something, and the other is across the street, a Sunnyside. Before I have my relatives stay in those, I just want to know what is the clientele there? No.
I remember 30 years ago, I made a comment on the Value Motel and I got in trouble. I think you should know Highway 99 has a lot of traffic, right? I mean, you just have to pay attention. Yeah, you asking the question, you should know that answer right there. There are some areas, the business may be good and ran, but there's the areas is, I don't, I tell my wife I avoid certain areas, or, when I go, if I don't have to go to because I just don't, the chance of something happening. So, yeah, they're good. There are worse places. Go ahead.
So your funding, obviously, is tax dollars. Does the county or county commissioners that we vote for, that who determines how much money is going?
So if you let me explain this. So our general fund, I want to say is around $200 million for the Clark County to run operations, not the sheriff's office, the whole county, which includes the sheriff's office.
And neighborhoods.
And everything is about roughly 200 million salaries, equipment, you name it. Out of that, every year it goes up a little bit, right? Because you get more tax dollars. But the law and justice is funded mainly through sales tax numbers. So here's where a little problem here in Clark County, and you're living next to Oregon, right? That's affected us for years. Sales tax there, we lose some of that. Most property tax goes for schools and other things. We don't take it. There's a couple different ways. We'll never get to the numbers that we actually need through the general fund, meaning if it goes up 3% a year, that's about what a cost of living adjustment is, usually 3 to 4. And our budget goes up to maybe 210 next year, the county. That isn't enough to cover it because everyone's just getting, the parks are getting just a little bit. Everyone just gets a little bit more. To do it, you have to run a special tax, a public sales safety tax, meaning every time you buy something, 1/10 of 1 cent would go to law and justice, to the sheriff's office. They can write it. We got body worn cameras about 3 years ago. The tax went to the people and said, this is what we need. This is what it's for. It passed almost 60-40, which I was thankful, because body worn cameras, I'm telling you, it saves you money, the lawsuits and whatnot. So that we can run one that way. It doesn't bring as much money, but it brings in some. That gets distributed to everybody in the county. So if the county ran one, we would get roughly 40% of the proceeds from that. The city of Vancouver would get about 45 because they're a little bit bigger, and then the small cities. So everybody gets part of the pie from the sheriff's office or at the county. You can run a levy lid lift on a property tax specifically for that. The county, what we go up against in the county, and live in the counties, if you want those services, we also have to get the people in the city to vote for it. So that's a disadvantage. So that's why counties historically just don't have the same budget as the city does. You just, and I'm not, trust me, I'm not for taxes. I'm not talking about who's for or who against. How do you pay for this? You have to run a special tax. You're right. And if the people say we're willing to do it, I'm a believer. If I know where it's actually going and it's not being supplanted somewhere and it has to go to, because when you write these, they actually have to go, there's special funds that has to go for that. And I know my money's going to go for this. I'm much more apt to, if I believe in it, to vote for that than just to see another tax come through. No, you know what I mean? So we have to be specific on what we're asking for and what it'll cost. And so, yes, we have to go out to the people and decide. So it's tough, right? You know, it's how much everybody, I think the school one just went out, Vancouver. There'll be a couple more this year. You know, everybody's fire department seems to get whatever they want. Get me going. But
Maybe just one more question before we.
is there a question online?
Nope.
All right.
All right, Richard here.
Oh.
I, wasn't it last time if the Park County Sheriff's Office have been able to partner with the Vancouver Police Department, the city of Vancouver was requesting a bunch of new officers. But if the county and the city have got together, that's a way to address what you're saying.
I think that should be a possibility. I got shut down on that one. That's not, they don't want any of that. City of Vancouver have to want it. So yeah, you're right. I think of everything. In my opinion, public safety in our community is public safety. And I don't hold I'm proud of the sheriff's office, but if it came down to having a joint metro that gave better services, like Las Vegas did years ago, I'm not against that. I don't think any politician should be against that. But that's not the way it is. People want to hold on. We do partner with City of Vancouver on certain things, SWAT team, other regional teams. We couldn't function by ourselves on those things. So we look for ways to that. But you are right. At the end of the day, I mean, if we all could combine, it would make it better. But, you know, my guess is City of Ridgefield wants to hold on to City of Ridgefield. You know, pride, our officers will do this. If you spread it out, then they maybe feel they don't get the same services. So that's a good thought. Good question. All right. Is it online or no? I didn't want to forget I'm online. And if you guys don't mind, I'm tired and I have to go home or my wife is going to get really upset with me because I've been out every night this week extra. But any extra questions, go to Merrill Lee and I'll email out. That was a great question of what you can do because there are things you can do. And I know the parks guys are here. They're ready to rock and roll. So thank you all. And is that it, Merrill Lee?
Yep. If anybody sends me anything, I'll make sure I get it sent to you.
All right. It's a good question. I'll tell you, this is some of the best questions I've had. Give you that. So thank you all.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Have a good night. Get some rest.
All right, we'll look here for our representatives from Park County Parks and Department. Come on.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ross Hoover. Hoover like the vacuum cleaner or the dam. So you can remember my name if you have any questions after tonight's presentation. I've been with the county for 2 months, but I've worked in parks for about 27 years now. I got into parks, and I think my coworker David as well, kind of accidentally. But once I got in it, you see what parks is for. You see the kids out there running around the playground with this giant smile on their face. Or when I watch my parents walk on a trail, and they like to walk a trail by their place, and enjoy the outdoors and get some fresh air. When you see all the teenagers today, what are they doing? They're doing this. Parks are a really important solution for some of the things that ail us in society today. And so we're proud to work in this area of work. The county park system is really unique, and I am learning all about the system. We have about 13,000 acres in Clark County. A lot of that acreage is natural areas, trails that you can hike on, waterfalls that you can go visit. You're probably familiar with some of the parks in the county system. Vancouver Lake, the ball fields that you probably passed when you drove in here at Luke Jensen Park. Got some really cool waterfalls up a little bit further north. Just really unique. And we've got really small neighborhood parks down south near the city of Vancouver. A really diverse, unique system. And then one of my favorite parks, of course, is Salmon Creek Klineline that we're going to talk more about today. So of that 13,000 acres, who's taken care of their yard before? You know how long it takes to make it look nice? 13,000 acres, we have 39 full-time staff. And of that 39, 6 of them, David's group is just focused on replacing the old stuff that wears out, the old park bench that wears out, the old playground that wears out, the walkway that has cracks and roots all over it. So we have 6 people just doing that, working as hard as they can. And everybody else is all we have to maintain that 13,000. Imagine that. So we're going to talk a little bit about David's group's work and how we make our parks continue to function and look nice and meet not only the needs of today, but also the needs of the future and the new families that are coming into Clark as well. So we're finding that balance. David's going to walk us through what's happening up at Klineline and Salmon Creek.
I'll back up just a couple of seconds on Ross's comments about the system and provide a little bit more specificity about how we're structured. So there's the city of Vancouver, and then there's the urban growth boundary. So there's actually a part of the urban area that's not in the city. So in 2014, when the agreement between the city of Vancouver and the county was set to expire for whatever reason, there was a decision not to renew that agreement. So that the Vancouver Clark Park District split up. And then there's the Vancouver Parks District, and then there was Clark County Parks. So in 2014, we became our own entity. And as part of that agreement, we took over the operation and the development and the acquisition of property within the urban growth boundary outside of the city limits. So it's on the map that the sheriff referenced. And so there's just a slightly lighter shade of that green. That's the greater Clark Park District. So we buy, plan, develop, maintain both the community parks, which are the larger parks, and the neighborhood parks, which are the smaller parks. So we're going to talk specifically about Klineline, that Klineline Pond area, which is, it's sort of a weird combination of a regional park, which is the parks that are outside of the urban growth boundary, and a community park. So there's regional park parcels and there's community park parcels within this particular property. And that is sprinkled all the way down to the sort of the western end of the Salmon Creek Greenway, all sorts of weird property ownerships between Legacy Land, which is one of our partner divisions, and Parks and Nature. So Part of what the planning and development team does is we develop the capital improvement plan, which is our 6-year plan that gets updated annually, that gets updated every 6 months. So it's a constant cycle of trying to make sure that we're doing the right thing with the park improvement fees that we receive through the development community. So when a developer builds a subdivision, they make a contribution to the park improvement program, and then we use that money to buy property and develop property, or make new recreation amenity improvements within a property. We also have our major maintenance program, which is where we start to align, not butt heads with. We used to sort of butt heads with operations, but where we align with our operations team, and then we also support them in a preventative maintenance program. So when the operations folks don't have the time or the skill set to tackle a problem, an issue, concrete work, whatever, members of our planning and development team work with contractors to bid those things out, try to get them done faster. So for the longest time, we didn't have that sort of an arrangement. And in the last 3 years, we've really started to develop some momentum. So some things that might seem like nobody's ever paid any attention to them, like the Pondview shelter, which sat out there for 2+ years after it got hit by the cottonwood, before we even tore it down. Once we formed the planning and development team, we got that building down and got a new one up as quick as we could get a permit for it. So, and then we had the eagles that we had to wait for. There's a nesting pair sort of up over here, and we had to stop because they were busy and we were bothering them. So we stopped that project, and in the fall we came back and finished it. So we also, at this property, we did a big parking lot renovation. I don't know if any of you experienced or saw what we were doing out there, but we replaced about 40% of the asphalt. That's because it sat there too long and fell apart, because we didn't have the staff and the capacity to get on top of those things and keep our assets from deteriorating. We're doing a much better job of that now. So those two projects were sort of the first, what I would call, major facelift of this wonderful piece of property. And we were approached by our representative from the state and asked if we had a project that, if we had more money, would we do more to make improvements. And we pitched this project to them as a accessibility improvement project. We've got a bridge that we need to deal with. There's all sorts of access issues for people with mobility issues at the park that we'd like to address. The building doesn't really meet ADA requirements. We don't have a bathroom in the parking lot. We just have a portable toilet. So we put together a program, and we worked with the Department of Commerce, and we came up with a budget for about $4 million worth of improvements to this property. And I'm going to run through that really quick, so you can switch to the next slide. A little bit of history on the property. It was first developed in the 70s after the quarry operations ceased at the site. It was used as a borrow pit. So the pond is actually really deep. So if you would look at that other picture, who knows how deep the pond is? There are actually people who trained to scuba dive in the park. If you didn't know, if you've ever seen anybody out there scuba diving. So after the quarry work was done at the park, it was, I don't know how that transfer took place, but we took it over and as a community park. But before the quarry operations, it was a golf course. I don't know if any of you knew that. And where the highway sits, there used to be a lodge / pro shop building. They had a restaurant there. It burned down before the highway was built. So there's a lot of history at this piece of property. It's a beautiful piece of property. We love having it in our portfolio. The splash pad, the playground, and then the creekside shelter were built in 2006. So that was the most recent upgrade to the property. Next slide, please. There's the Pondview shelter. Tried to specify a shelter that Wasn't the same size as the other shelter, but had the same sort of arch, glulam, character. It's complete now, and we're really happy with the contractor. It's a local contractor. I really like to work with local contractors. We are subject to low bid, the low bid environment. So a lot of times we don't get to work with who we want, but this contractor was a really wonderful, patient person, especially when we started to deal with the Eagles. Was willing to leave the site, come back later, didn't charge us more money, which they certainly had every right to do. Just a really pleasant experience. And this is the $1.365 million grant for accessibility improvements came through the Department of Commerce. And then we have our own park impact fee money and our real estate excise tax money. A little bit of those two sources of money in the project for the improvements we're going to make. So next slide, please. Most of you are probably very familiar with the park. That's the primary shelter. Parking lot I mentioned, the sand, beach, and water access can be less than pleasant environment during certain times of the year because there's some water quality issues that we would over the long term like to deal with. Some beach issues that are a constant maintenance issue that we're going to work on as part of this project. A very old splash pad that's going to get replaced in this project. The two reservable shelters, the bathhouse, which I mentioned, which we're going to do some accessibility improvements on and try to make it look a little bit better than it currently does. The fishing platforms, which we'll do some improvements to get rid of the dry rotted boards, and maybe make some actual fishing improvements to it so you can actually land a fish from there instead of yarding it over the rail. And then the open lawns, which we're going to start to convert some of that back to native landscape for maintenance purposes. It's just easier for us to mow less if we're converting some of it back into woods, like you see behind the shelter. Actually, there's 9 irrigation zones back there in the woods that we used to maintain as landscape mow it. And over time, we've just let it sort of revert back to a natural area, which is a better situation for the wildlife. Next slide, please. Existing conditions, like lots of our parks, they're older. Some of our parks are 100 years old. Louisville Regional Park has been around since the 40s, so maybe not 100 years old, but pretty old. Again, this park was developed in the 70s. The bridge decking doesn't meet ADA requirements anymore. The footings under the bridge have been scoured out. We're getting ready to repair that. We actually had a meeting with the county shoreline administrator today to talk about getting a permit to get in the creek and make sure that bridge lasts another 50 years. Parking lot, the handicap fishing. One of the handicap fishing platforms are sturdy but older building, pretty old playground, and then the beach with some erosion issues. Talk a little bit about that in a minute. Next slide. So there's the splash pad. There's the beach, which is sort of a combination of sand and mud. Not so much sand, and we're going to work on that. So, and as I mentioned earlier, a lot of these features don't meet the current Americans with Disabilities Act requirements. So ADA, we like lots of agencies are full of acronyms. So if I use an acronym and you don't know what I'm talking about, scold me for it and then ask me what I'm talking about. So next slide. So this is the preferred new plan. To orient you, this is the parking lot. This is the current what we call the host house. It's the home down in the main parking lot. I-5 is over here. The new shelter is here, the Pondview shelter. The current splash pad sits right here. So, and this is the existing building, right? So the Crescent Beach is sort of this pretty obvious feature in the park. These two handicap platforms, viewing platforms, will remain. And I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we don't have is a bathroom in the parking lot. So in this concept plan, we'll be adding a flushable toilet. It'll be plumbed as opposed to a ADA portable toilet. Pave some parking there in the existing gravel area, make some improvements over there. And then take the splash pad and move it back behind the building. Make it maybe twice as big. I don't know if it's twice as big as the current one, but it will be much larger. Take the old playground, which is sitting here, and move it out into the lawn area. Have a nice view out of the existing primary shelter across a lawn and out across here, and really start to create some spatial differentiation that makes the space a little bit more sort of family friendly. Not that it isn't currently. Make some seating improvements along the beach, and then have some sort of a retaining wall and seating structure at the edge of the walk where we have the erosion issue to try and flatten the beach out a little bit. So the beach is pretty steep. It's part of the reason why we can't keep sand on it. The sand either ends up in the grass, in the filter for the splash pad, or in the bottom of the pond, because it's what we're putting on it right now is called Columbia River sand. It's too small. So we need to go up in grain size, not the pea gravel or something that doesn't feel good underfoot, but something that will stay in place, won't get wind blown, won't track as easy on feet, won't slide into the bottom of the pond. And in order to do that, we're also going to put some sort of a berm underneath the water, a riprap berm that you won't be able to see, but the sand will have sort of a stopping point. That all is subject to a list of permits this long. So those in-water improvements are what I would consider phase two. Also in phase two is some sort of ramps, handicap ramps, wheelchair ramps that actually take people down to the water. So people with mobility issues will be able to get down to the water. Right now, if you want to come here with your family and you've got a kid or you've got a parent or a grandparent who's in a wheelchair and the kids are down here, you can't get down there. You can just enjoy them from 25 or 30 feet away. The idea here is that you would be able to come down and get closer to the water. If not, transfer into the water, perhaps. So that's some of the water improvements that we're talking about making. We're going to be making those circulation improvements, going through and identifying the pavement that needs to be taken out and replaced, in addition to, some of the other things that we're doing, just a general facelift. Next slide, please.
You have a question?
I hate to sound ignorant, but what's a splash?
So it's a water playground. So if you go here, there's a bucket that fills with water, and every once in a while it gets full enough that it dumps the water on the kid. This is our only, if you could back up, I'm sorry. This is our only water play structure in our system. And we have, in the summer, buses from daycares,
Can you go back
and
to the one?
preschool coming here.
Oh.
Bus loads of kids, because it's becoming a refuge from the
It's a
summer
lower
heat.
photo there.
Yeah, these buckets actually fill up with water and then they dump once they get to a certain weight. This is a ring that actually has water that sort of sprays. Kids can run through it, and then some of it's on a button, and you can basically spray your friends with it. And so this is becoming it's almost like for people who can't afford to have a pool or go to a pool. And we can't afford to build a pool or maintain a pool because it costs millions of dollars. These are really great alternatives for kids to come and parents to come and cool off.
If I was 5 years old, I wouldn't know that.
There's no age restriction.
There is no restriction at the splash pad. So, next slide. Just a little bit of a blow up of the bathroom. This is going to be a two We're switching, most of our bathrooms at this point are, they're not like multiple bathrooms in one restroom. It's a restroom. So you can close the door and you can have that privacy. You're not in there with 3 or 4 other people. Plus it allows us to make them non-gender specific. So we don't have a men's room and a women's room. This will have a little bit of a storage component to it. We'll be doing some ADA parking improvements, and this will have a better connection, excuse me, to the Salmon Creek Greenway. Right now, if you go there and you have mobility issues and you don't want to use the portable toilet, you have to walk about 400 feet to get to the bathroom, which is a lot to ask. While we're on this slide, the home, which hasn't had a host in it for about 1.5 years now, we just put out a bid to renovate that. So the planning and development team and 2 of our admin staff will actually office here, which we think is correct. Puts more eyes on the site. It'll help us manage the property a little bit better. It'll help us connect to one of our properties, and the 8 of us that are going to be moving there in the fall are pretty excited. So it's be a really nice connection with our parks. Right now we're here behind a locked gate. We're in the PSC downtown, up on the 4th floor behind 6 or 7 locked doors. So if you wanted to talk to one of us face to face, you have to get lucky enough to bump into us here. So new paved parking lot. And then another item, there's no way currently in the handicap parking stalls to get out of your car and get to the 2 pay machines or to the bridge without going into the travel, right? So you get out of your car, you get to, and you're in a wheelchair or you have a walker, you have to brave the travel. You have to go out there and trust that somebody's not ripping in there at 50 miles an hour. Now we're going to basically build a ramp so you can get out of your car, you can come through the aisle, you can go down a ramp to get on the trail, which sits below the ADA parking stall. So we're going to make that improvement. We're going to make a better connection to the trail. So the Salmon Creek Greenway Trail comes in, and again, you have to go out into the travel way to make the connection to the park. And we're going to make that enclosure, if you're familiar with the park, smaller. We're going to be able to, people are going to be able to go in behind that enclosure to get to the bridge.
That trail that's by, let us see that goes under
This trail,
Alpine Bridge?
yeah. So if you go,
Are you gonna develop that little bit
East.
more?
we don't currently in this project have a plan to go and make any improvements to that gravel trail.
Okay.
That's all on WashDOT right away.
Oh,
So in order for us to make any improvements over there, there's a whole other layer of bureaucracy that we would have to go
so
through.
it's the part that's beyond I-5.
Yeah.
Down lower.
Yeah.
Let me see. Is that county land or is that WashDOT land?
It's county, or I'm sorry, it's WashDOT. So everything between I-5 and 99, and then a little bit past 99 is WashDOT.
Okay.
And so I believe we maintain that section of trail, but it's not on our property. That bridge was part of a different project. It is not a county-owned asset. The bridge is not. So, but that's a great question, because I'd like to make that connection a little bit more literal. If I'm dreaming about connecting people to parks, I'm dreaming about how to connect your neighborhood better to this park.
Well, I dream about the park which shows up on the park's lands in Sherwood.
Yeah.
East. No, that runs down. There's a trail almost, but you can't use it.
Yeah.
Down to the river, which could connect up with the street.
Yeah, I
Then
was.
we really would have a park
Yeah.
in Sherwood neighborhood.
Yeah, I was actually over there last fall, just exploring, trying to see where those connections could be made. And there's some commercial that sort of butts up against that lower trail, and I didn't ever get back to my desk and start looking at property ownership on GIS to see how that connection could be made.
So start at the top of that, we'll work your way down.
Yeah. Yeah. Next slide. Oh, you had a question, sir?
Yeah, on the, what are the hours?
Our parks close at dark, so we're good. Dawn to dusk, except for in the winter. And I think that we close our parks at 7 or 8 in the winter. We have not been closing the gate. So,
Oh, so the gate's open?
yeah, the gates are open 24 hours a day now.
So it's drove, right?
What's that?
So it's drove. If you go the wrong direction, you flatten your tire.
The teeth are down at this park. The teeth are supposed to be down at every park.
The other question I have is, once you renovate that house, or that residence, whatever it is for your office, will that change the parks, time?
It will not change the park time in this location.
There will be somebody there manning the area.
We won't be there in the evenings. It'll be sort of a day use and office. There used to be somebody there 24 hours a day. There are 2 RV pads that we installed last year that we'll be getting utilities connected to, and we will probably have 2 park folks here sometime next year. So we would like to get somebody back on site that's there in the evenings, because it's really helpful for us to have that presence.
I just
So,
have one more question.
sure.
Are the VGSA fields part of your parks?
So the BGSA fields are on our property. And they were built by the Vancouver Girls Softball Association. And they have a lease on that dirt. And they maintain everything inside the fence. And we maintain the restroom just outside of their fence complex, the trail, the parking lot. And so their lease is being renewed right now. And so we assume that they're going to continue to be a part of it. Yes, and the parking lot, actually, that parking lot is in our capital plan to be renovated, like the parking lot here at Klineline Pond, I think in 27 or 28. It'll be a
Is it
big,
all paved?
huh?
Is it all paved?
Yes, used to be.
Mandatory?
Just a lot of alligator cracking, and there's some areas where it's almost entirely come apart. And it needed to be probably fog sealed 15 years ago, and it just, those sorts of things were just not happening. So we'll do a big pavement replacement and a cape seal, which is actually rock oil, so it's like an even more durable surface, and restripe it. I'll probably do a bunch of curb replacement in that location, remove some heaved sidewalks. We do a lot of that. Doug Burr likes to pump our sidewalks up in the air and on angles. So that's in the capital plan as a major maintenance item. To be, a big project. And they just replaced that entrance because they had a water main break there. That's what happened, in case any of you are curious. The Clark Public Utilities had a water main break there, and it totally washed out the entrance to that side of the park, and they replaced that. Yeah, that's all new pavement. It was closed for 2 weeks, and people had to drive through the park. Luckily, it was not during softball season, or we would have had a really big mess. So these are just some image boards. What some of the seating might look like. A transition from the upper part of the park to the beach, down to the beach. These what we would call precedent images, not necessarily the things that we're going to do. We're wanting to add shade wherever possible, so we're going to try some things like umbrellas and tables and see how those things hold up. We're doing some things throughout our system, trying different materials in our playgrounds and shade over our playgrounds. So recognizing that it's just getting hotter and people need to go to their parks and be able to enjoy them when it's 116 degrees and we're in the middle of the heat dome. So next slide. Some precedent images. Again, this isn't what the splash pad is going to look like, but play elements like the water coming out of the ground, water coming out from overhead, the easiest thing to maintain is any sort of jets that are under the ground. So if you travel around and you're noticing these wet plazas, that a lot of them have the water coming out of the ground because it's much easier to maintain. You don't have powder coated metals, those sorts of things. So we'll probably have a combination of both. I like the overhead features because they draw your attention. People will know that that's where it is, but it'll be a healthy balance between the two. Playful patterns in the pavement, fall surfacing that if you fall down, you're not going to, take off, several layers of skin. Next slide. Playground. Again, this is a much larger playground than we currently have in the park. A lot of our neighborhood park playgrounds are about 3,500 square feet. And this one is more of a neighborhood park size, and I'd like it to be more of a community park size, so 5,500 to 7,500 square feet. So this playground will get almost twice as big. And we'll be using different kinds of surfacing, perhaps in this park. This is actually what's called playground grass, and so it's fake grass that's over a fall surface, so it's really soft and squishy. So if you fall on it again, you don't hurt yourself. There are playground safety requirements that we have to follow at this point, and so there's fall attenuation things that we have to make sure that we meet.
Can I ask if animals, do their business on it? How does that do?
So it's my antimicrobial, and so you simply spray it off. And so, yes, if animals go to the bathroom, which they probably will, especially if you don't have your dog on the leash, which is you're supposed to, then we would have to clean it off.
Okay.
There's a good example of this if you wanted to see playground grass at Marshall Park in the city. They just did a huge renovation of that playground, and there's playground grass on the hillside there. And then downtown at Esther Short Park, there's a small all-access playground down there, and they've got playground grass. So it's very similar to that. And so we'll probably have some of that. This is not a very great image, but there's poured-in-place material. So it's basically a recycled rubber product that gets spread on the ground, and it's not like wood chips. Wood chips are a much higher level of sort of annual maintenance.
Just a quick question. I thought pets were not allowed in the park.
And you know what? That's a good point. Pets aren't allowed in the park. So there will never be a pet doing their business in this park. Yeah, pets are not actually allowed across the bridge in this park. That's actually really a good point. No dogs. But I see dogs in the park all the time. Even when I'm wearing my corny little orange vest that says, Clark County Parks and Lands on it. People really are.
Do you say anything to them?
Yeah. Next slide.
There's a question about, will this larger playground have all access features?
We will meet or exceed the requirements for access. And the point behind the poured in place material and the playground grass is to provide access to as many features as possible. If we did postman platform structures like this, we'll have transfer decks so people can get off of their devices and onto the play equipment to get to as many of the activities on the structure as possible. That's a great question. This is actually, if you back up, this is an all access merry-go-round. So you can actually make the transfer into that structure, and they actually have a very big merry-go-round that you can actually wheel a wheelchair onto now. Probably not going to see that something like that. You just don't have that room. So next slide. Real quickly, I want to be mindful of your time. In addition to just making the building look better, probably painting the roof, painting the outside of the building. We're going to we're going to take the splash pad equipment that's in the shed that's just outside of it and put it in the back of the building. So we're going to get rid of that metal shed. And the front of the old lifeguard office will become a family restroom with the changing station. So you can go in there and you can be by yourself. The interior of these restrooms will get renovated to the extent possible to make them ADA accessible. The lifeguard storage area will get converted to just general park storage. And then this other front office or front space, which used to be a concession stand, will be another family restroom, and it'll have an adult changing table in it. So if you bring somebody there who is an adult with a mobility issue, you'll have the ability to help them get changed into some suit.
Where are the lifeguards?
The lifeguards haven't been at the park for 2 years now.
Yes.
And the lifeguard program is it's a very expensive program to run. There's some additional liability associated with providing lifeguards at a property, implying that we're providing a safe environment as opposed to swim at your own risk. And so we haven't done that in a couple of seasons. And so if we were to ever add lifeguards back into the program, we would build another building.
Yeah.
So
Are the concessions going away also then?
there will not be a concession at this location. Not currently. Again, 20 years from now, concessions could be all the rage. They could make money. Right now, finding somebody to operate a concession facility is really challenging. We've just finally found somebody to operate the concession at Luke Jensen. They start March 1st, I believe. But it took 3 years to find somebody to do it. And lots of staff time to sort of rattle the bushes for that. So a little bit on phasing. I mentioned phase 2, like this is about 85 permits. I'm exaggerating for effect, but this is only about 40. So this is all floodplain. So we have to get a floodway permit. We have to get a shoreline permit because we're all in the shoreline. And so these things just get more and more complicated all the time to build. So we're gonna do some of these upland improvements in the parking lot, and then the in-water improvements will be part of a future phase. So the money that we have set aside, the $3 or $4 million, whatever it is, I don't have my capital plan in front of me, is all for that first phase.
What is 2B?
2B is there's an old like a fishing platform there that doesn't have the platform on it anymore, and we're going to renovate that. The fishing platform, the old dock is sitting over here, sort of tied up to the shoreline. I was on it. I would recommend that you don't go on it until we get it fixed. But we're gonna reattach it to the shoreline over here, make it fully accessible. So we'll put what's called a curb on it, and so folks in a wheelchair will be able to get out onto that platform and fish or just enjoy the view. So
I had a quick question just about the pond itself. So what fills the pond? Is it natural springs that fill it?
it's groundwater.
Okay, it's not connected to the creek.
It is not.
So when
That's
the
part of
ground-
the reason why we have a water quality issue.
Uh-huh.
It's not hydraulically connected to the creek at the surface. Almost certainly in the groundwater it's connected. The 2 ponds that are in the park are connected with a pipe. And we need to get out there and fix that pipe. I don't know if you've been out there lately, but there's a big sinkhole.
Yeah.
That's had a fence or a barricade around it. We need to get out there and fix that. Another permit. So we're actually going to meet with our accessibility advisory group and in the sort of when we get some nice spring weather and go through the plans, go through the park, and sort of review, get some input from them on the accessibility challenges. We're going to finalize this conceptual plan, which means we have to go through an approval process with the community development. And we just had a meeting last week to talk about what in our plans we need to clarify. And then we're going to do design and construction documents starting in fall of this year, spring of next year, with hopes of bidding the work in the spring as soon as possible. So, and again, we're going to do that phase 1, the work that's permittable quickly. And we need to use the grant with the state. So the state's grant cycle expires when the budget cycle expires. So, and then we'll go into phase two, which is the end water work, which will include analysis of the sort of how big the sand needs to be and where to put the berm and designing platforms and those sorts of things. Thanks. I appreciate the questions while we're going. That's really helpful for me.
So is it gonna involve closing the park to do some of these things, and hopefully not during the summer, during the.
The question was, is it gonna involve closing the park for the people who might still be online? It looks like maybe oh no, there's still 6 participants. The park will have to be closed for periods of time. I could see being able to close portions of the park. It's just the more you restrict a contractor in the way they do their work, the more money you pay for the work. So if I tell a contractor, you can work over there, you have to get all that done. And then you can come over here and you can work over here. So we can open that up. We're going to pay more money for that sort of service. And so we'll balance all of that with the sort of needs of the community, because it is a much loved asset. As you all know, you live right nearby. So there will be some closures, like we close the parking lot.
There's a question online about, why doesn't the playground have swing sets? I think there's a couple swings that are currently, are those not part of the new playground?
So
that's on the pictures.
Swing sets to meet safety requirements take up a ton of room now. The fall zone requirements on swing sets just take up so much real estate, and require so much fall surfacing that you're seeing this all over the country in every park district, where you'll see a 6-bay swing set and it'll get torn down, and then all you'll get back is 2 swings in the same amount of room, because most playground equipment has a 6-foot fall zone, but a swing set now has a 12+ foot fall zone, and the higher the bar, the more the fall zone. And so I'm not saying there wouldn't be swings here. There's a tire swing, a shared tire swing in that concept, but this is just conceptual work at this point. It's possible that there'd be a couple of swings back in this playground when we get into design development. It's a good question. We get that question a lot about swings.
Any other questions for?
I had one about the quality of the water. I know it was closed down. There was an E. coli thing one year where they had to close it. How often is that water tested?
The Department of Health tests the water, just like they do at Vancouver Lake, at Lacamas Lake, at Frenchman's Bar. I don't know the testing frequency. But when we get into that season where we've got water temperatures rising, it's pretty frequent. And we partner really closely with them to get signed out to talk about waterborne illnesses and hazards when you come into contact with the water. I would love in our second phase to be able to tackle that water quality issue in some way. We can't hydraulically connect it to the creek because it's a fish-bearing stream. But flushing the pond would be the best way to make the water quality improve. But it's a challenge especially a pond that deep.
So does it sound like the closures would be in the summer of 2005, and there wouldn't be a finished project or the work on it until 2026?
Say 2005.
Oh, I know.
I'm trying to remember.
I wish it was.
It's not happening this summer.
It will not happen this summer. We won't happen next summer. The bridge repair work that's going to happen underneath the bridge to repair the footing will probably happen in the in-water work window. So we have to work in a fish-bearing stream during non-fish season. And you'll have to forgive me since I'm not the project manager on that. I don't know the work window for that project, but the bridge will be closed for a little while during that work. And then I think the work in the park would be late 26, 27.
I've heard about 3 years.
Yeah.
Are boats allowed on that
pond, little kayaks or anything?
They are not.
Or not, okay. Didn't think so.
If there's a boat on that pond, it's the DNR folks.
Okay.
They come out once a year and they put out their net pin and they put in rearing fish. And then they let the fish, they finish the fish, I think is the term they use, before they put them in the stream. And they also move those rearing ponds for the fishing derby. So if they're out there on a kayak, I think, or a little rowboat, and they're putting out their net pins. And I think that the last time I was out there, I looked across the lake and there's somebody that's got kayaks at the bottom of the hill over there. Yeah, yeah. We're out there looking around. I'm not gonna weed whack all the way over there to put notes on the kayaks, but I did make a mental note of them.
A little bit after 8, how about one more question there and we'll wrap
Is there a
things
plan
up?
for increasing the access fee, parking fee?
There was a proposal that our previous division manager took to council to adjust all of our fees. I don't think that the parking fee was proposed to increase. I think that the number of sites where we were going to charge a parking fee was proposed to increase, but the council said that's not the way we think we need to handle the revenue challenges we have. The sheriff stood here and talked about revenue challenges, and we all have revenue challenges. And so that didn't have much momentum.
Yeah.
And
If you took the fee off again, like they did a few years back, you'd have a lot more use. It would be more enjoyable.
Yeah. The challenge with more use is more maintenance. And we had to, find this weird balance between pay to play and then some sort of a revenue structure that is free for all, right? And that's what Ross and the other managers in the divisions we talk a lot about. How are we gonna try to make it equitable so if you can't afford to pay, and we have a fee, is that fair, or do we raise the levy that we collect so we can take the parking fees away from the 5 sites that I think we collect parking fees at, so anybody can come to the park regardless of your financial ability. So that's a topic for a different
We could
neighborhood
maybe do something in
association.
the neighborhoods where some of the neighborhoods give away a parking passes and a raffle or something.
So we've talked about equity, where somebody can basically say, I can't afford the annual fee. And we basically have what would amount to like a scholarship program. And we talked to the Park Foundation about administering that. So if you have some financial limitations, you could get a parking pass. And we just don't have the foundation currently doesn't have the capacity to sort of add those sorts of things to their to-do list, for lack of a better term.
I want to thank
Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
We're just a few minutes over, but before we wrap up, I just want to mention there are some papers on the table back there about CERT. Looks like they're doing some classes also if you're interested in CERT, which is the Park Emergency Regional Response Scheme.
Yes.
Also, Marilee brought us some development information about a subdivision that's going in behind Safeway right up the hill off Highway 99, 129th Street. So we just have a few limited copies, but if you're interested in that, we have those up here. And then last but not least, we have a board member who served us faithfully, and she's going to be moving out of town, out of state, Bridget Klineline. And so I just wanted to give Bridget a quick thank you for being such a wonderful person. We're going to, Linda Ellens is going to be taking over the email, so you'll be seeing those come from her instead. All right, anything else for the good of the order before we wrap it up? I want to thank everyone for attending tonight. Thank you. Great turnout. We like your community participation and involvement. Thank you. So, thank you.